but I think we usually start with the temporary space, which not a lot to add there. It's ongoing. It's, you know, so far on schedule. Contract is doing a good job. You have some slides I can share, just a couple pictures, if I can see them. Sorry, I got the mole look today. I just came from the eye doctor, so I can't see great, but. So just a couple of quick pictures. You can see the framing is ongoing in the big room. All the demo is done. The framing is ongoing in the big room. A couple of pictures of the big room is all I have, really. You kind of see that main hallway. And this is Chief Suite. Tom, the Chief Suite? Looks it.
I don't see the hot tub. That's
So.
Call it a suite.
So ongoing at the, I don't know if the OPM or architect have anything to add, but the contractor's moving right along. Questions are getting answered and things are getting done. And, you know, looks like if you were to go over there right now, it looks like a construction site, but hopefully when we go over at some point this summer, there'll be some walls up and everything will be looking good and we can take a trip over there. I think we were talking about July maybe to start our meeting or have our meeting over there. Just like next meeting, we're planning on starting at the police station in the field. So the current police station in the field, so we can get a look and feel of the trees and what that's gonna look like after. For the is there any questions on the temporary project? Questions online? Nothing? On the existing project, I think Kevin shared a deck of slides, and I can share mine for those that are online. They're not the exact same, but they're close enough. Status on the existing project, big dates coming up is, we have this meeting today, obviously, big meeting. Next week is preliminary design review at the planning board. That's where we can go and share the current designs of the renderings and sort of get some feedback from the planning board so that we can hear their feedback before the select board makes a final decision on the design. So hopefully we'll be able to get some feedback today from you all. The next big date after that would be the following week. Conservation kickoff meeting with them is on the 22nd. And then the Board of Health is on the 27th. And then Planning Board site plan review starts on June 5th. Nailed it. So any or all of you, feel free to come to any of those. If anything changes on that, we'll let you know. We do have a hard deadline of this Thursday to have complete set of everything in for the planning board in order for them to start the site plan review on the 5th.
I can tell you that as of 20 minutes ago, both applications were accepted by planning, so that's in.
Okay. So you won't hear from me on the 15th now. One other thing is, we'll cover it when we get to a butter. So,
John, a question on
yep,
the dates you mentioned. First of all, what was the June 5th date again?
that's the planning board meeting. That will be the public hearing for the site plan review,
Okay.
That's opening.
opening the public hearing.
And it sounds like the schedule of the planning board and our concern of meeting that schedule has been alleviated? Or?
Well, no, I mean, that's just our first meeting, and the feedback we got from Barbara and Liz and Caleb and Brenda was that it is unlikely to happen in one meeting, so that our next meeting after that would be the first meeting, the only meeting in July.
Okay.
So that's been taken into account, you know, as sort of not worst-case scenario, most likely scenario for us when we figured the slippage in the schedule was based on us being able to get to that date And it sounds like we've made it at least to first, and then we will go from there. Does that sound right?
Correct.
Sound right? Yep.
That sounds right, but are we gonna get the rest of the schedule to see how it's changed on the other end based on this?
Yeah.
Last meeting?
Yep, yeah, I have some copies of the meeting, but also Tom is here to basically, we can share the schedule, but also he can give you the sort of the basics of it. You know, the first, by missing the May meeting, pushed us X amount of weeks. If we get June, it would be this week's. Likely July, it would be this many weeks. Yes, I just gotta find this, I mean, it's only gonna be the little ones, I'm not sure how great we can see them, but I can send them out to everybody, and. Let me just. So Kevin, with your renderings, I think you start with just a quick site one that I don't have. So, since I have renderings, why don't we start with renderings? I don't have site, and we can do that after.
Okay.
So we had, at our last meeting, we talked about what the sort of, not design, full design, but what the shape and massing and size of the building was gonna be based on the programmatic needs inside of the building, and the design improvements kind of shaped what the outside of the building looked like. And that was after hearing some feedback from lots of different people. And this was sort of the last shape and size of the building that we looked at, and this is most likely what's gonna come to, which will be the final shape. Not necessarily building materials, not necessarily color, but this is sort of where the programmatic needs and design improvements have driven us to get to. And as I say, always don't hate the color or the building materials right away, because we're basically looking at two different building materials for these facades on where the dormers are, at the projections, where the dormers are. That's a hardy material and can come in many different colors. It's basically what we're gonna decide is do we wanna use that material or brick, which you'll see in a moment.
And the dormers are definite, is that correct?
The dormers are
Okay.
gonna be in the, yeah, I mean, the select board hasn't decided, and we haven't got any
So this design
feedback.
without the dormers is off the table?
That is, yes,
It's an early one.
That's no longer,
correct. At the last meeting, we talked about 5A being the base model, and now from there, they were looking for feedback on what,
I was on the meeting online, so
oh, got it.
that's okay. Thank you.
No problem. So like I said, this is sort of the shape and size. You can see that those projections with the dormers can have different colors and different materials on them. What KBA did for us was a couple different, in your packet, you have more different colors. But in the end, it comes down to there's two different materials. There's the hardy material that can come in any color that Kevin has some examples of. And then brick, which can also come in lots of colors, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows what brick looks like. There is a significant cost increase if we go with the brick. But a lot of the feedback and part of the town center overlay district is to blend that building. If the goal was to blend from Grandview to the town campus, that the brick building does exactly that. It looks sort of like Grandview, and then Matt has the brick like the town campus buildings. But we'll continue to get some more feedback on that. Yep.
What's the difference in pricing?
The back of the envelope was more than $500,000. So that doesn't consider time or, you know, but,
That's just materials.
yeah, that's just materials. I can't imagine that it'd be that much time. But.
So that would put us over?
Well, not necessarily. We still don't have, you know, our next estimate will get a little bit, get a little bit deeper into the design and have a little bit closer number, because a lot of it is based on, you know, guesses, because the final design and construction documents aren't done yet. We haven't had a 60, right?
No, we're
No.
looking
So
to,
we'll get a 60% completion estimate from two different folks. The OPM will get one, and the design team, the architect will get one. They'll reconcile that estimate.
Okay.
And at that point, we'll know where we stand for the overall budget, and then we're gonna get another one at 90%, or,
We're doing a 75, 80% at the end of this month.
okay?
Yeah, that's just scary to be potentially be over $500,000 on a project that we're already really have a really high budget on.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if, I just said what the cost of it is, so I don't know that that means that we're over by 500,000. There's contingencies in the project to absorb some of this, and the design wasn't done at the beginning. So, doesn't necessarily mean we're over yet, but we will have a design by an estimate by the end of the month to find that out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, looking at this, my favorite here actually has the small foundation of the brick going
Yep.
around. So that's the
Let's-
brick option 2. That would be more expensive than brick option 1.
I think that number we talked about was if we went with the water table and the projections.
Yeah.
So that number, that we mentioned, 500, 600,000, whatever that is, that was the highest number, because that's the most brick.
Okay, so the brick option 2, the most expensive.
Correct.
And of course, I would like the most expensive.
We all would.
Who's going to be making the final decision on whether it's brick or not?
Select board. So there's a couple, so this board is advisory to the select board. The select board will go to the planning board, and like we said, has to abide by the design review in the town center overlay district. Oh, I'm sorry, Liz, I didn't even know you were there.
The planning board as the ultimate design review authority over the town center, over the district.
Design review authority to ensure everything meets the guidelines.
Yes.
So,
John, aside from aesthetics, is there anybody doing any kind of analysis in terms of the pros and cons of using brick versus other materials?
like durability, you mean, or?
In all aspects, longevity, durability, repair, maintenance,
Yeah, I mean, I think all that factors in when you find out what the cost difference is, and factor that in about whether it's worth it to, I don't know what the difference between the life expectancy of that.
Well, obviously, the brick is going to have a much longer lifespan than the hardy siding. But the hardy siding is the only thing that really goes wrong with hardy siding is that eventually it starts to fade from the UV protection. It comes with a 20-year warranty on the color for the sharpness and the trueness of the color for 20 years, at which point you would end up having to field paint it, and then you're subject to the continuing maintenance of field applying versus a pre-finished material. The brick isn't completely maintenance-free. If anybody that's ever tried to maintain brick buildings, there is still stuff that you have to do, power washing, some sealing of joints. That sort of, it's a far less costly maintenance on brick buildings, but you're still gonna have, a vast majority of the building is gonna be the hardy siding, because we're really only talking about some accents for the masonry. So there really shouldn't be a significant difference in life cycle cost of the building.
So in terms of buildings that you've built or designed and that have been built, reflecting back upon them, do you have a consensus from your analysis, which ones have worked out the best?
I guess it depends on how diligent the municipality is with their maintenance of their buildings. Budgetary-wise, that tends to be one of the first things that goes on projects is the maintenance, and you, instead of doing something every 3 years, you might push it to 5 or 5 to 7 or something like that. But I know that projects that I've done that have been 100% hardy siding, including in my hometown in Holliston, the building still looks very sharp from 15 years ago when we built it. Same thing with masonry buildings. They don't tend to show hardly any weathering, if you will. When you look closer to 15-year-old hardy, if you know what you're looking for, where some of the telltale early signs are, you can start to see a little bit of something happening. But with proper maintenance of joints and keeping it clean, power washing the hardy every year or so, they hold up and they last for quite a long time.
I just think that at this stage, we're in the process of, coming up with a design and the materials that are gonna be used. It's gonna be really important that we don't skimp, if you will, on this building, because like I've said in the past, that, 10 years out, 15 years out, you don't wanna be saying, I wish I'd done this. Do it now, do it right, put the best facility we can, up, for the staff to work within, and then feel good about what we've done.
Yeah, that's why I guess in our office, we have kind of a, I don't want to say a design guideline, but we won't use like aluminum or vinyl siding. We won't use a lot of stuccos. We won't use the thin brick, like the New England Brick Masters, to give you the fake stuff. That just doesn't hold up over time. For a municipal building, that, especially like these, that are going to have a 50-year lifespan, they just don't hold up to the test of time and weather. So we just plain don't do those. Because some people will ask, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? We would strongly disagree and not recommend it. But ultimately, it's the municipal, and I don't know that we've ever had a project that had vinyl siding on it. We have had a couple that had a little bit of stucco on it, or drive it. But those are very few and far between where there was serious, extreme budget issues that had to be overcome. But they also come with a higher level of maintenance to the building, because they just don't have the ability to hold up for the durability that we're looking for to provide for the municipality. And all the materials that we have here, there's really no exposed wood on the exterior of the building that's outside the air and vapor barrier for the building. Everything on the outside is either a cement-based material or a PVC, so it's not prone to rot or bug infestation or any of that kind of decay. The material is going to be here for a while. It's the finish that's on the pre-finished hardy that is the only thing that you'd really have to worry about from a long-term maintenance standpoint, from a capital project to repaint the building.
Well, I think it's important to reflect upon what the department has gone through, the police department. They started out where the library is at the intersection on Cambridge Street, and then they were moved over here into the small unit, that's the annex now. And then there was a settling of opinions in terms of adding on to the Union School to make that the police station. And, those buildings, each one of them have deteriorated rapidly. Police departments are like schools in the sense that they get a lot of abuse, a lot of wear, and so as we move forward on this project, I hope that that's kept in mind in terms of ensuring that the building that is built for the department is going to be a solid building. It's going to be one that's going to last for a couple generations anyway, and hopefully longer, and that we do it right now.
Yeah, we tend to select our materials for longevity and maintenance. We kind of bite the bullet and go with a rubber flooring or a vinyl tile flooring that's got much better durability. In the old days, as being a school person yourself, when you start talking about VCT, you're talking about having to take people off of that floor for the refinishing process, because you got to strip it, 2 to 3 coats, 2, 3, 4, 5 coats of wax put back on it before you can let anybody back on it. We don't have that luxury in a building that's
Right.
24/7, 365.
Right.
That we tend to go with products that are very long wearing, very long lifespans with minimal maintenance required to them. So all of our flooring in here, aside from some of the carpet, and a lot of times the carpet, we're doing carpet tile, so it's a little bit easier installation. But most of the other hard surfaces are basically wet mop and clean. We don't do anything that needs any stripping or any of that kind of heavy chemical use. We try to also be a little bit green sensitive to putting chemicals in the building and in the environment. So most of our stuff is cleanable by just soapy water and mops and scrub brushes.
See, and it's important for everybody to understand that, because, there's a tendency to say, what's the cheapest way we can put together a building, and, it's going to suffice to provide the services and whatnot that are necessary. But as you say, and you're pointing out, if you can't get things done to clean, to maintain, to service on a regular basis, or they're going to deteriorate rapidly, before you know, within 5 or 6 years, you're replacing floors or walls or things of this nature, and now you're spending excessive money. Do it right now, pay the price now, because in 5 years, 10 years, it's going to be double the cost. So just do it right now.
Tom DeZunis, OPM, if I can just add to that. Everyone, we have to remember and recognize that police stations and fire stations are unique municipal buildings. They're used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't get the, quote, rest the way, the town hall does, or a typical municipal building. So there are more expensive upfront costs associated with being able to provide the surfaces and finishes, both interior and exterior, for these type of uses that are just that 24/7. And, we've got officers that are coming in sometimes in dirty conditions based on where they were at and what incident that they were reporting to, so they're not coming back with clean shoes all the time, as you would come into, again, a typical town hall or other municipal building. And some of the guests, I use the term guests, that come into the station aren't looking to maintain the building. So again, those areas need to be much more robust than a regular building. So when you look at the cost of a police station versus the cost of any other municipal building, they're higher because there are upfront initial things that just must go in, or you're going to be paying for it in 2 or 3 years. You're throwing money away when you use less quality materials, is the bottom line.
You're right.
The exterior trim that's, kind of shown in the bright white, I'm assuming that's like an AZAC or something like that?
Yeah, PVC.
Is that going to be painted, or is that the color that comes like stock with that?
According to the manufacturer, you don't need to paint it. We typically paint it because the material intrinsically has got a negative charge to it, a slight negative electric charge, so it tends to draw dust and dirt, that when you paint it, it creates a more neutral surface so that it stays cleaner longer between cleanings. So we do typically paint all of our PVC. And we are cognizant of the thermal expansion and contraction that happens with PVC. So we've got our specifications for the paint set up to be specifically for that application. So we're not worrying about blistering or flaking off as the material underneath that it's adhered to expands and contracts much greater than the Hardy does, or brick, or any of the other products that it's up against. And we design our details to allow for that expansion and contraction, so the building itself can move and shrink and expand with the seasons and however the light's hitting it during the course of the day.
So that may require more kind of upkeep to keep the paint looking good versus the hardy board cement siding, which is going to kind of be maintenance-free for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that I hate keeping using back to my town with Holliston, but I think they power wash it every year, and in the last 15 years, I still keep in touch with some of the officers down there, and they haven't had any problems with painting, peeling, or anything like that. They've really just kind of kept up with keeping it clean and neat. They had a couple of caulk joints at some corners that started to decay a little bit, and they replaced those, but there's really the exterior of the building, which was 100% hardy, they haven't really had any problems with.
Okay. Good.
Not to say that it has to stay hardy, but hardy is more vulnerable to weathering than the brick. I think everybody knows brick is a much more durable surface than something that's cementitious, that's got a pre-finish on it. as opposed to the brick, which is color throughout, grout is color throughout. So any of those things, and you're not putting another finish on top of it.
I just have a question on the brick option. The brick's just on the front and side, it's not in the back, correct?
We're taking it all around the perimeter.
All around the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
There was no real convenient place to stop it, and that's just plain bad architecture.
talking about the water table, right?
Yeah.
Just that lower.
But what about the upper part?
We don't have those elements on the back of the building.
So, okay, so that'll all be the hardy siding?
Yeah, so the back of it's just got the wainscoting around the entire perimeter.
Okay.
Anybody else feedback on that?
Do you have any rendering or idea what the this building's gonna look like?
I don't think we have that yet.
Not yet. It's going to be a traditional Butler or Nucor prefab, pre-engineered metal building. So it'll have, you can pick either vertical or horizontal side.
Will you be able to have that ready for the planning board?
Yes.
Discussion next month?
Yeah, for the 15th.
We'll send it to you before.
Yeah. What's that?
Can we match the building in terms of color and materials?
Color, yeah, anything is possible for a cost. Typically, we do the metal buildings because it's a more cost-effective way to get square footage for housing.
It's very visible there to the neighbors, and I don't, actually, maybe you should show me a picture of a metal shed that doesn't have, and I'm open to doing that.
Yep.
I'd like for it to match the building. I agree.
Yeah.
If we get it before Thursday, I'll send it.
Yep.
And you can share it.
Yeah, that's,
And also, there was a question about the enclosure for the dumpster,
Yep.
so we'll have that too.
Yeah, that's actually on the submission that came to you guys, that you guys posted.
Okay.
Part of the stamp set of drawings.
okay.
The dumpster enclosure and a couple of the other comments, that there was some questions that came, that JD sent us along from the meeting, the DCM meeting,
Okay.
were actually part of the stamp set of drawings.
Okay, I'll fill it.
Any other feedback on the design?
What's the, is there going to be an enclosure on the generator?
Yes. There'll be a sound and weather enclosure on the generator to mitigate the noise and preserve the longevity of the generator itself.
And so what's that going to be? What's that?
That's metal.
I think we probably want to steer away from that if we can avoid doing so.
For the actual generator material, they come from the manufacturer as a pre-built package.
So can we do something surrounding it to make it more aesthetically pleasing?
That's a possibility.
Yep.
That's
We'll look
probably
into
a
it.
good idea.
Okay.
Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry.
I see the website hasn't been updated in a long time. So
Right, yeah. So,
visibility is limited to people in this room. That is the remedy.
Yep. It's on our list, so we're sending when we get to the neighborhood meetings, we'll talk about that, but we're putting the website on the neighborhood letter, so we gotta have it updated as soon as possible, so.
I started working with our marketing person to set that up so that we can start loading some new documents on it for what we want to project.
Anything else? Yep.
I think it's, I'm not sure if this has been addressed yet, but on-site lighting, whether, what's going to remain from what's currently on-site and then what's proposed, it doesn't come up in the renderings, but that's standard, I understand that, but, if there's going to be lighting on the building, around the building, what the specs of that would be. If you can get that again before the planning board, that's great.
Yep.
That'll come up kind of regardless.
Is that something we have a shot at for Thursday, or is that more?
I'm trying to get the photometric study done for Thursdays.
We probably won't have spec sheets on the lights though. but-
I'll get, if they'll have to have that to do the photometrics, so I should be able to get some
And if you don't
catalog
have to
cuts.
just kind of, being able to address it next week too, what the
Yep.
plan is at this time, and there will probably be comments from the board about that.
So now you know you're going to hear me say photometric next time we talk about this.
New word of the day.
Okay. Good? Okay. Yep.
When you come to planning board, you require them to do some question of how many trees are you taking down? Just
Yep.
a little bit heads up, so you have that.
Yep.
Yes, I have somebody counting on the existing survey. It said 12-inch caliper and above for removal, so, yeah, we've got,
And if you're replacing, you know,
yeah, the replacing is kind of easy, that's our planting plan. But in the package that was submitted to the planning board, there is a plant list, and it does say specifications for what size calipers going in on day one, and then obviously they'll just go from there, get larger. But I do have my landscape architect that was at the DCM meeting, had that on her list of things to do for a quantity of how many again. Yep.
Okay. So next on the new construction, we talked last meeting about how we've had some schedule slip in that we need to take into account multiple planning board meetings in order to see how the schedule, how that's going to affect the schedule and ensure that we're still going to be able to start the project in the fall as planned. And I don't have any printouts of it because I don't really have the big paper, but I'll email the schedules to everybody so you can zoom in on them, and I'll bring them up on the screen now. But we have a June, one for a June approval, which calls for, this would obviously be the most optimistic as we know now. That calls for the construction, for the project to begin early September. And then a July approval pushes it out 2 or 3 weeks. August approval pushes it out 2 or 3 weeks. And on the schedule, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you have the printed out ones. We still have to tweak this. We'll know the further we get along, and once we get a little bit further in the design. But then most importantly, after we get a designer a contractor on board, we'll know if there's any recovery schedule that we can do beyond what the estimates are by the OPM and the architect. But worst case scenario, hopefully worst case scenario would be an August approval, final approval with being able to get bid docs on the street, and that puts us into early October for starting the project, which it isn't the end of the world, but it's approaching the danger zone for winter conditions. So hopefully we're going to be able to do better than that. I don't think it's likely. We know now it's not likely we're going to be able to get an approval in June, given the schedule.
If we're going to be pushed into August, we can have a special meeting for you guys to get that done.
Oh, great.
So we print out pushed into the elements.
Thank you. So we'll probably be able to judge after the June meeting how things go and know, okay, we're going to be able to do it in 1 more or 2 more, and then we can work on that.
Yeah, I think if we could simply just report as soon as possible.
And there would be some strategies we could look at from a budget, from a bidding standpoint, to how much the initial comments come back from your board on June 15th, or the June meeting. If they're fairly, I'll take the glasses more than half full, they're pretty minimal. We could, as a group, decide whether we want to go forward and issue that as an addenda to kind of get the start of the bidding process going, or if we just want to plain wait and do it as a clean, here's a set of drawings that goes out with everything in it. I mean, there are some strategies to try and pull potentially a couple weeks back, depending on how the initial conversations with planning go. So I guess all I was trying to say, it doesn't have to necessarily be just a straight linear A to B, B to C, C to D. There's abilities to kind of weave in and out and kind of do a lead lag time as certain things are happening. But that would be full disclosure with everybody in town to make sure we're all on the same page.
We haven't really, as the design team in our meetings, we haven't really drilled down on the schedule and say, oh, well, you said 18 days, but it's probably more like, 14 versus 28 days. So we will do that when we find out how likely it is that we're going to get, or, what month we're looking at an approval for.
And as Kevin said, there's pros and cons to issuing an early package and then amendments or addenda to that big package. Generally speaking, the more addenda you issue, the less competitive, because the teams have started their work, they're seeing changes, they're not going to go back and wholesale do it all over again. So there's pros and cons.
I also want to add in that we're talking about a lot of planning work, where there's also going before Board of Health and Conservation Commission, and the project team was before the development coordination meeting earlier this week, where representatives from both Conservation and Board of Health were there. So there's still kind of issues being worked through with both of those boards and commissions that need to be kind of factored into those timelines of approval. It's planning and those other two.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we don't have multiple meetings for those, just knowing that planning can't give approval without those approvals, but maybe we will add them onto the schedule so you can at least see them too, in case it takes two of those. Okay. Write that down. All right. I emailed the schedules to everybody because it's not probably going to be helpful if I bring them up, but they, I can do that, but it basically works out to what I was talking about. Let me see if I bring one, if we can see it. I guess we can sort of see the important part. So this is the most aggressive one with June, and let's see.
What's the estimated build time from shovel into the ground to August? What are you looking at?
20 months.
20 months?
20 months. And that'll get us to substantial completion theoretically, and then we allow a 2-month for kind of final completion, which is punch list and all of that stuff. So it's really 22 months by the time we're looking to try and get the department the building was really ready for them to move into. They've had a chance to get all of their furniture installed, all their technology involved, evidence moved over, all of those types of things, arranged for cutover for E911 and radios. So like I said, overall, 22 months is when we're looking from shovel in the ground to, or actually not necessarily shovel, from notice to proceed from the general contractor. Contractually, that's when they would start. Once their contract is awarded, they may still take a couple of weeks or a month to get an actual shovel or any real activity on the site, because they've got to do their buyouts, they've got to do some of their other things to get their insurances, all of those types of things, get a trailer on site, get their building permit applied for and approved, the demo permit as well, and any other requirements from Board of Health or Conscom for the demolition of the existing building. So, but that all is included in the 20 or 22 months.
And they're just going to be working Monday to Friday, will they be working weekends? Is there
Only what's allowed, only what's allowable by the town through bylaws. I don't know if there's any requirement, if there's any ability to work Saturday or Sunday with the prior approval of the Board of the Select Board, or whoever has the jurisdiction. We'll get into the finer points of that on the bid documents and the contract, but those would be stipulated within the contract, what their work hours are.
This is obviously very important, but folks at home are going to be asking those questions.
Yes,
That's
no.
going to be top of mind, the first thing, and how it's going to impact.
Yeah, no equipment starting before 7 a.m. any day of the week. Not allowed to keep things idling. They're not allowed to do certain other activities. There's requirement. We have provisions in our front end, or the general conditions for the project, for dust control and waste management and control of all that stuff, that they're required to keep it a clean and neat site. They're required to keep dust control measures down so that as they're doing the excavation, before they get any of the pavement or the stabilization of the soils, that they're not just blowing dirt and dust all over the neighborhood. We have requirements in there for the specifications for that.
And our plan is to have weekly email blasts and on the website when we update it of the work that's coming up. and posted the project rep's cell phone and email for the neighbors that when something ain't going right, that's the person you call.
They're not calling you.
I didn't say it, but.
Once we get into construction, we'll have an on-site representative that's there full-time as the project is moving. And as JD said, that individual's contact information will be readily available to the entire committee as well as the community.
Yep, sorry.
Yes. It's already been, we've got the report, I need to get you the copy of the report to send over to Board of Health, if they requested a DCM. It's clean, by the way. There was actually just trace amounts, and I think in some of the roof, some caulking at the roof edge, which is below the threshold that can be done by standard demolition practices.
Sam?
Yeah, I guess because I don't want to stay more, what are the phases of construction over that 22-month window? Because like next winter, I could see you're doing a lot of interior work, getting that stuff done, but are we putting walls up in January, or what are the rules, what's the phasing of that?
Until the contractor is actually on board, we don't have that level of detail. It's the contractor that develops that level of detail. You know, we know, generally speaking, what the duration is, but they will develop that.
Okay.
Do you have a list of folks who you're presenting, who you think would be bidding on the RFP for contractors?
No. What's the,
We need to do a pre-qualification process.
Yeah.
The committee needs to be formed with the OPM, the architect, and the town. We'll be issuing an SOQ, RFQ for all interested general contractors and file subcontractors. Once we get those pre-qualified, those will be the only contractors who will be allowed to bid on those categories of work.
and 50 is a 46 mil is a pretty good size project that I think people are attracted.
Agreed.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I would suspect we'll probably get probably close to 5 general contractors that'll bid the project. And we're planning on doing this as a hard bid, not as a CM at risk for any of those that are knowledgeable of some of the delivery methods, but this is just going to be a straight Chapter 149 design bid build with a hard number as opposed to contingencies and CMs. Yeah.
JD, Kevin kind of broad brushed the procedure. Mass General Law, Chapter 149, sets out very, very specific procedures that must be followed. We will go through a pre-qualification process where there's a whole set of criteria. One of the major criteria is the value of the work being performed, and contractors that do not have a DCAM certification for that level of work are automatically disqualified. So you can't get the mom and pop shop trying to do the plumbing in this building.
Minutes, on to minutes is next on the agenda.
So
Unless
moved.
anybody has. Sorry.
I'm going to request a delay. I haven't had a chance to look them over.
Minutes?
But I haven't had a chance to submit my comments because I did want to add something.
Okay,
If you don't mind.
I'm okay with that. Everybody else? Good.
What was, I didn't hear.
Just kind of wait.
I'm asking for a delay because I wanted to make some edits and I haven't had time to do that.
Delay the approval of the minutes?
Minutes, yes. Thank you.
So next meeting date, I think everybody has. We're doing the second Thursday of the month, and we're going to do it at the police station. So we can be in the field and play amongst the trees and get an idea of what's coming out and where the building's going to be. And that's the
11 a.m.?
12.
That meeting, or is it still 12?
Yep, still 12, unless we want to do an hour before, meet there, and then come over here for the 12 o'clock meeting, but I don't want to monopolize people's time and assume everybody has 2 hours for the meeting in the day, but we could do that.
So that's 2 o'clock.
That is, June 12th, yep.
So it's 12, not 11.
So maybe you could just get a feel from the committee if you'd rather just do that field trip before and then have our regular meeting here at 12, or just meet there at 12, do it, and have the meeting over there. Okay. Okay. 12 o'clock over there then. You got a spot for us, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. Neighborhood or abutters, we have a letter that's to share. This is separate from what is required to go out for a public hearing from the planning board. This is something to just come out from administration or from the building committee or from somebody, but here's the draft that sort of just introduces the project. And the idea was to do that whole neighborhood back there. I'm terrible with streets, so it would be Sears Street, Rogers Street, Stacy Street, and then Sleeper. So we haven't decided yet if we're going to just go, drop them off and do a little walk, Tom and I and some folks, or if we'll just mail them. The reason about the mail, I was worried people were going to see it and throw it away like I probably would at my house. But we can set it in a labeled envelope so they're likely to see it. But so we'll figure that out. But you can see what the plan is to have 4 listed, actually 5 if you include Grandview, but to have 4 neighborhood meetings at different times of the day on different days. A morning meeting, an afternoon meeting, and 2 night meetings to hopefully be able to get as many folks as we can. And then to also reached out to the chair of the board of whatever they're called, at Grandview, to see if we could have one there in their building, likely to get, they'll probably be at every single meeting, but likely to get all of them if we have it there. So the goal is to just meet as many as we can, tell them what's going on, find out from them how they want to get their information. Do they want to be on an email list do they want to check the website? Do they want to come to the meetings, whatever? So that's kind of ongoing, and these will go out, hopefully today or tomorrow, and they'll at least get this before, I doubt it will be the first time anybody's hearing about it, but we don't want them to get the public hearing notice before this, and then that's the first time they hear about it.
So for the abutters, the biggest effect is going to be for not quite 2 years. It's just going to be the impact of construction on the neighborhood? Is
Yep.
that, okay, thank you.
They would probably either more, it's a bigger police station, it's going to be closer to their houses, the parking's going to be closer to their houses, there'll be fewer trees. I don't think any of this is insurmountable, but I think if we ask the neighbors, they would say those are impacts that are less.
I see, okay.
Yeah, and they're certainly going to want to know what you're doing to mitigate those.
Yes.
So that's the neighborhood, that's a standing agenda item that we'll continue to have, and then the last one is historical, and I think after the last meeting, there was a walkthrough with some folks to sort of identify some things that need to be done. None of that's been done yet, but it isn't, we still have plenty of time to do that, but I won't take it off the agenda, because I can feel Wayne staring at the back of my head right now as we talk about it. So we know that there's some things that have been identified, and we know that there's a bigger issue about when we get a contractor on board, and most specifically the demo contractor, or likely to be the same, to identify how and how many of the building materials we're going to salvage and exactly what we're going to do with them is the bigger conversation. But
Has there been any more discussion about say the clock? That might run up in the email. I know it's not on the rendering, I was just wondering if you looked into it.
I think Mike fixed the clock.
Is it working?
Oh, you said it was. I haven't looked at it, but
We went over and we were looking at the clock, and I was happy because the motor is mounted right on the back of the clock, and it doesn't look too complicated. I was worried that it would be weights and all kinds of wacky stuff. So my impression was, hey, we could rebuild that motor if it needs it, so it's going to work, well for a while, or even replace it.
I think that would be nice.
What's,
Yeah.
is the feeling in the same spot? Like on that, over the entrance,
Slope the
that
door.
dormer over the entrance?
Yeah,
Well, one of the only places.
I haven't really given that, on the other side, but I just think it's a nice idea.
Yep.
yeah, and I think,
I assumed it was going to be super old and we were going to have to put it in the lobby, but if it worked,
Wayne or I must have jiggled a wire, and then when I went outside, I was looking at the clock and, looking around at the common, and I looked back at the clock, I said, I think the time changed. So it started working.
all right.
Sign.
The lightning bolt that hits
Yeah.
eventually. That's Back to the Future.
So next time we get together, we'll have had a bunch of meetings and hopefully have good news for you. But we'll be June 12th over there at the police station. So we'll make sure Kate, when she posts it. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
Discovered